Hey everyone, welcome back.
Yeah.
We are diving deep today. Bitcoin.
Ooh, exciting.
It is. But, we're not going to get all like techie and jargony.
Okay.
Yeah. We're going deeper, more like philosophical,
I like it.
how Bitcoin could like change the way humans like interact, especially around money and power.
Yeah.
Like imagine a world where governments can't just mess with money.
Okay. Yeah.
What would that even look like?
Right.
And that's what we're going to try to figure out today.
Sounds good.
And to help us do that, we have this super interesting interview with someone who, hasn't just like read about Bitcoin.
Yeah.
They've lived it.
Oh, wow. Okay. So someone who is like really in the trenches.
Totally. So one of the big ideas that comes out of this interview is this whole voluntary exchange thing,
Okay.
which might sound kind of boring, but it's actually really important.
I'm listening.
Like, think about our current system. Governments, they control the money.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
They can print more whenever. And that can make your savings worth less.
Mm-hmm.
It's like a sneaky tax.
Yeah. I get it. But Bitcoin, it's different. It's like decentralized. No one's in charge, really. So transactions, they happen directly between people.
Yeah.
No banks. No government.
Oh, interesting. So it's more like individual control.
Exactly. It's about economic sovereignty,
Yeah.
Like having your own bank account that you're totally in charge of, not relying on someone else who might,
Not have your best interests in mind.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And the guy we're talking about today, he's really seen this in action.
Oh, right. So how did he get into this whole Bitcoin thing?
Well, he worked on tall ships,
Yeah.
and offshore wind farms.
Wow. Really? That's a unique background.
Yeah, and I think that gave him this, global perspective. He was seeing different communities, different economies.
Right. He wasn't just stuck in one place, in one system. Right. And that led him to places like El Salvador, where Bitcoin is being used every day, especially in this community called Bitcoin Beach, if you heard of that.
Yeah, I've heard of it. It's like a little Bitcoin haven.
Yeah. And he talks about, growing up in all these different countries, seeing firsthand how different economic conditions can be.
And that makes sense, right? When you see that kind of disparity, you start looking for alternatives.
Totally. And one thing he brings up that I thought was so interesting is he compares crime rates in Colombia, Sweden, and El Salvador.
Oh, wow. Why those three?
Well, it makes you question, our assumptions about what makes a place safe and how much that is tied to, like, governance.
Right, because we usually think of places like Sweden as being super safe and stable.
Exactly. And he's saying, well, maybe there are other ways to measure that.
Yeah. And it's not about saying one place is better than another. It's about recognizing that people's perceptions of safety are, shaped by their own experiences.
Yeah, for sure. And that ties back to Bitcoin, too, because for some people, especially in places where traditional institutions have failed, Bitcoin feels more trustworthy.
Right, like they've seen firsthand that governments and banks can be corrupt or unstable.
Yeah.
So this decentralized system, where no one entity has control, is actually more appealing.
And, the source material also talks about how Bitcoin might actually lead to more peaceful solutions.
Oh, really? How so?
Because it can't be manipulated, right?
Yeah.
By any one group.
Yeah.
It forces people to actually communicate, to negotiate,
Oh,
to
interesting.
find agreements that benefit everyone. It makes communication more, I guess you could say, profitable than using force.
That's a really interesting point. So instead of resorting to violence or coercion, you have to find a way to cooperate.
Exactly. Think about it. In the traditional system, if a government wants something, they can just print more money to pay for it,
Yeah.
even if it means going to war.
Right. But with Bitcoin, that's not possible.
Exactly. So it kind of levels the playing field.
Yeah.
Incentivizes actual cooperation.
That's a powerful idea.
It is, right. So what do you think after this deep dive? What does this tell us about how Bitcoin could change the way we interact?
Well, I think it paints a picture of a future where individuals have way more control over their own money,
Yeah.
Where trust isn't about these big institutions, it's about decentralized networks.
Right. More peer-to-peer.
Exactly. And where communication, cooperation, that's what gets rewarded, not conflict.
So I have one final question for you and for our listeners.
Okay.
This whole idea of communication over violence.
Yeah.
Do you think Bitcoin could be a new framework for international diplomacy?
Oh, wow.
Could it help nations, find common ground, resolve disputes peacefully?
That's a really interesting question.
It is.
I'm not sure I have an answer right now, but it's definitely something worth thinking about.
Right. And that's what we want, to get people thinking. So thank you for joining us on this deep dive. It was a good one, right?
Yeah, it was. Lots to think about.
Until next time, everyone.
AI!